I'm very excited to be here with Charles and Matt. I have a long connection with working with Charles. He's been my extraordinary marine biology mentor for many, many years, over a decade. And I met Matt about 5 years ago. And I'm so excited about this book, Explore the Shore, that they've both been doing. It's an absolutely incredible book that gives people who don't have a biological knowledge amazing access to the shore. So about 5 years ago, we were on the shore, and I'd been working for many years with Charles. And then I met Matt, and I realized he's an incredible writer, amazing filmmaker, and I thought, wow, wouldn't this be something special if they did something together? And then lo and behold, that's exactly what they did, and we have this incredible book. But it began as a film series, am I right?
That's right, yes. So we started as a YouTube series, which, as you say, you in fact inspired us to do, and my late wife Roberta was also very keen on. So we started off just making YouTube videos and posting a video every 2 weeks. And then after we got to about 50 videos, then Jonathan Ball Publishers actually noticed the video series and then thought it would be interesting to have a partner book that would go with the video series. And then they approached us to do this book. So that's actually the origin of the volume. And each of the spreads in the book corresponds to one of the videos that we've taken. And the unique aspect of the book, or unusual aspect of the book, is that on each spread there's a QR code. So you can take the book down to the seashore with you. You can read about the topic while you're actually on the shore, and then you can come back to the house and click on the QR code, and then you can watch the corresponding video.
So that's what I found so amazing about this book. You see, it's quite a nice small book that you can easily take down to the shore. But actually, when you start going through it and you watch these amazing videos that Matt and Charles have created, that book becomes actually quite encyclopedic. And the videos are absolutely incredible. Now, Matt, you were obviously making all those films. What I can't help asking is, how was it working with your dad? Because most people find that impossible, and apparently it's a test of enlightenment if you can just spend a few days with a parent, let alone doing a whole project.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's worked out very well in the end, but it's kind of hard not to play the child and parent role when you're hanging out together. I think the main thing for us was making it entertaining. Charles is an amazing lecturer. He's been lecturing for how many years? 50 years? Over 50 years at UCT in marine biology. So he's got an encyclopedic mind, which is turned into this video series and this book. And all of these anecdotes and stories about things which aren't captured anywhere. I think that was actually one of the things that you noted very early on, which inspired me, was that my dad had all of this knowledge that nobody else had access to, and these stories and crazy behaviors of these animals, to try and capture that. But the key thing for me with working with him was to make it entertaining. So to take that encyclopedic knowledge and captivate the audience and make it entertaining for them.
Saying to me, yeah. But say that again, but with more feeling. And make it shorter, it's not a lecture.
No, I mean, it was just amazing that, to me, I just kept getting that incredible feeling of you two guys working together. And how was it for you, Charles, working with Matt? I mean,
it's been great. I mean, I think in the early days when Matt was a teenager, then he wasn't really into this type of thing at all. He was much more into music and art, and everybody else in the family has got a scientific bent to them and enjoys nature and going to the shore. And we would often get the story in those days, "Oh no, Dad, we're not going to the seashore again." But now in his older age, he's come around to actually realizing this can be pretty interesting. and now he actually goes down to the seashore on his own and films all sorts of amazing stuff and sends me these little video clips. Or, what is this, Dad?
I mean, I think that's like a really important point, because if it can convince me to go down to the seashore on my own and discover things that, surely it's going to convince many other people as well.
It's doing its job.
Yeah. There's so much there to discover, which even being Charles' son, I didn't realize until now doing this with him. So that for me is the key thing. There's this awe and wonder in this world which is happening on our seashore, in the animals which are living there, in the crazy ways that they behave, the things that they do. It's just, I keep telling people, you pay all of this money to go on a safari in the Kruger National Park, but you could go down to a rock pool, and if you know what you're looking at, there's this amazing world that just opens up to you. So it's been amazing for me to discover.
It's accessible, isn't it, Matt? I mean, Matthew lives in Sea Point, and then he can just walk across the prom onto the seashore, and it's a sort of very built-up area with a big seawall, and I think very few people would go down onto that seashore to actually explore the shore and to look for animals. But in fact, many of our most exciting finds and many of our episodes in the YouTube series are actually shot right in front of
some great pictures from the book, which are just right there in Sea Point, which we captured.
Yeah, I mean, the book is really incredible. And how would you advise people now, someone doesn't really know the shore like you, I mean, just so you know, Charles has discovered over 100 new species himself. So he's just got this unbelievable knowledge of the environment. But how would you, someone who's a novice, someone who's new, how would you advise them to use the book? And how do they have to be careful, that kind of thing?
I think a lot of people have said to me, are there special places I need to go where I'm going to find some of these things? And I think the answer to that is that the best place to go is where you are. And wherever you are in the country, then you can go down to the seashore and you can find things. So it's more about when you go and the sea conditions than actually being in any specific place or looking for any specific thing. In fact, I think it's a mistake to go and look for a specific thing. It's better to go and explore and see what you find, because very often, as you and I know, Craig, I mean, I think something you and I have often said to each other when we've gone together to the seashore is that we've been 50 times to the same piece of shore. We've probably turned the same rock over several times before, but lo and behold, we find something we've never seen before. So every time you go, you find something interesting. So I would recommend people just take the book, go to a piece of seashore, find an interesting animal, and then try and look it up in the book and read up about.
And would you advise they go at spring low tides or not necessarily?
It's pretty important to go at spring low tides because then obviously there's more of the seashore exposed. But you can still do things at any state of the tide. So, for example, we have a couple of chapters in the book about beach combing. And then you're just walking along the high water mark, and then you can pick up cuttle bones or dead shells or mermaids' purses from cat sharks, a myriad of different organisms or their remains. And you can have a fascinating time and learn lots about the biology by just looking at these pieces of animal or fragments that are washed up on the shore. Shells, just seashells.
One of the biggest things for me is about knowing what it is that you're looking at. So you can go down to the shore and you might look in a rock pool and think that you're looking at some plants, but actually you're looking at some anemones and some hydroids and some actually really interesting animals which just live a quieter life. So having an idea of what it is, paging through the book and seeing what is out there to look at, I think would be a good place to start. Because then when you head down to the shore, you'll actually know, wow, this is actually an interesting animal. Let me take a look closer.
I think that would actually be a brilliant idea. Go through the book, go through all these amazing videos, get some sense of what these creatures are, then go down and then try and use the book to figure out what they are.
You can find it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a treasure hunt. Yeah. So I mean, some of these animals I'd love to speak about. Can you tell me a little bit about the giant pill bugs?
Oh yes, the giant pill bugs, the isopods, are an amazing West Coast thing, which spend like 23 hours of the day buried deeply into the sand. And then at low tide, at nocturnal low tide, so they only come out at night, at the nocturnal low tide, they burrow up to the surface, and then they trundle down the beach to where the kelp is washed up, and then they gorge themselves on kelp, and then they wander like a little tank back up to above the high water mark then and bury themselves, and then wait there for the next 23 hours or 25 hours. It'll be more than a day, and 24 hours plus 50 minutes for the next low tide, and then they come out again.
How do they even know that it's low tide?
Yes, so they definitely have an internal...
And you said that they manage to know when they need to switch over from going in the evening to going in the morning.
That's the weirdest part of the thing. So because they're timing their emergence time, and they come out 50 minutes later each night, they come out in the early hours of the morning, and then eventually they get to a point where the low tide is after dawn, and then they switch back to coming out just after dusk on the next night. So it's all perfectly worked out and timed, but it's a bit of a boring life, 23 hours down your hole, and then you get out and...
But they are amazing how big those isopods are. That's what's so surprising. They're like little tanks. And I was recently up the West Coast, and the entire beach was covered in their tracks, just everywhere. And I've seen them eating dolphins. They'll eat anything, and mostly, as you say, kelp and so on, but they're, to me, the most extraordinary creatures. Yeah. And I remember us also in our work trying to figure out the other type of isopods know when the big storms are coming. You told me, I remember, before the barometer drops, somehow they know, and they start coming out of the intertidal. So these creatures that seem to be quite simple can do things that our senses can't.
That's right, yeah. So on the beachfront houses in places like Komaki, then there's quite a problem with these amphipods and isopods moving up in advance of a storm and then going into people's houses. So it's one of the phone calls that I quite often get from people. All these beach hoppers are invading my house. What can I do?
Storm's coming.
As a child, they used to come through our house.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
yeah, it was quite amazing. And Matt, you're fascinated with the sea stars, which seem, if you don't look carefully, you don't know too much, don't seem to be doing much. But when you describe them, they become, these extraordinary creatures. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've discovered?
Yeah, I mean, all of these discoveries come through Charles, so I always have to get him to fact check me. But I think the most amazing thing for me about them was when you were telling me about how they're hydraulically operated. So they pump in seawater and use it in their legs to extend their legs. They pump water into their legs, which are just like jelly, and they extend out, and then they use the muscles to pull it back in again. And that these sea stars are hydraulically pumping water through their system to move around, and doing it without a brain, with thousands of legs, which can go in any different direction, but somehow are managing to open up muscles and move across the seabed and hunt prey, and it's crazy.
The coordination is wild because, as you say, there are hundreds and hundreds of these tube feet, and then because the animal has 5 legs, then some of the legs are pointing in the direction that it's going in, and it's moving forward. And then the other legs are out to the side, and then they have to step sideways. And the leg that's behind has to step backwards. And all this gets coordinated. And how they do it, I don't think anybody really knows how they do it, but they adapt at doing it. And if they bump into something, then so then everything just goes into reverse, and they just turn all hundreds of legs to moving in the opposite direction.
They're quite extreme creatures. I remember, a lot of my work's been going out diving every day for 15 years, and then finding amazing behaviors, and then Charles has always been the first port of call, much like you have, trying to understand these things. And remember when that vast mass of these sea stars started moving across the ocean floor here and was just devastating everything in its path. And they're radical predators. I mean, I always imagined myself as a turbo and having that terrifying sea star engulf me, and then I had to breathe, and it pours the sulfuric acid in and melts me inside my house.
I mean, that's the echinoderms, of which starfish are a representative, are certainly one of the most outlandish and the most weirdest group of animals that there are, because the other thing, other than their hydraulic system, that's remarkable about them is that they invert their stomach through their mouth and then insinuate it into the prey. So they will take, for example, mussel, and then they will attach their tube feet to the two valves of the mussel, and then they heave it apart, and they keep pulling. If those tube feet get tired, then they let go with those ones and substitute other ones. So they maintain the pressure for hours until they exhaust the mussel, and then when it gapes ever so slightly, then they invert their mussel out of their mouth and then insinuate it between the two valves of the shell and digest the flesh inside and then just slurp up the gravy.
And it's amazing how they also, moderate their numbers, because these vast thousands got these lesions, and then I think about 90% of them died, and then we're back to level. So the whole system is just fascinating, how they moderate their numbers. I really loved the piece that both of you did on the otter, the Cape clawless otter. And you lived quite close to the otters, and you filmed them coming out, and then you had this fascinating video of catching the clipfish. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like filming them, Matt, and what you know about the otters, Charles?
So we had some great help. We have had many bits of help along the way with Explore the Shore, both from yourself and from other people who've contributed. And that was Danny, who donated her footage of the otter. She had an experience where she saw the otter catching its prey under the rock. And we combined that with my footage, which I gotten in Greenpoint and Sea Point along the coast there. And yeah, it was just amazing seeing, for me, seeing an otter come out in Sea Point out of the storm drain. They had come down the fresh water pipe and out onto the ocean, onto the rocks.
So straight under the beach road, the busy freeway, and then popping out.
And they were just there foraging, playing in the water right there off the promenade, and people were just walking past completely oblivious of it. So again, it's one of those things where you have to look in order to see. But yeah, it's always an amazing experience seeing them. It feels like a rare and special sighting when you have an encounter with an otter.
Matt and I had a fantastic experience at Scarborough when we were staying there one weekend, and it was pouring with rain, and we'd booked this accommodation for the weekend. So we were determined to go out and make something of our weekend. So we went out in the rain, and of course nobody else was around. And we walked down to the high water mark, and then there was an otter just coming along all the little rock pools. And of course we didn't have a camera with us. And then started foraging in a rock pool just like 2 or 3 meters away from us, and then reaching under the ledges with his little paws and pulling out things. And it was just an amazing experience. And Matt did go back and get his camera, and we did get some footage, but not of that closest encounter. But when we were filming it, then it moved along the shore, and there was a fisherman there who just caught a fish, and he was cleaning it in a rock pool, and he was leaning over and scaling his fish, and the otter came up behind him and stuck its head in between his legs to check out the fish, and I got a huge fright.
Fantastic. Did the otter get the fish?
No, I think he managed to save it and held on to it. But they become very habituated in some of these sites now, coming onto the boats in Simonstown or Ballast Point.
Yeah, what I've noticed is as they get older, and in their last year or two of life, they start losing fear of humans for some reason. I think their eyesight goes and so on. And they kind of maybe realize we're not, that dangerous and maybe a little bit desperate, and then that starts to happen. So yeah, I mean, I love that footage that you have of them catching the clipfish with the hands. I've seen them doing a similar thing, but with larger fish, and it was just incredible how dexterous they got no claws. The front paws have got no claws. I've seen them catching the shy sharks, and then eat the livers, they eat the gills, and weirdly eat the fins. Sometimes they eat the flesh. So I think it's to create that spraint that they use, but I'm not sure. So they really are, I think, one of the biggest predators on our coast here, and fascinating. And the footage that they have that's connected to Explore the Shore through Danny and your explanations, I found that piece just fascinating. And it was amazing that you'd been filming them so you could add that together so beautifully. But I mean, these are quite exotic animals we're talking about. You can see the sea stars, reasonably easily. But I think what is overlooked in many ways is what, as you've told me so many times, Charles, we have the world hotspot for limpets. There's nowhere else in the world that you've got, 24, 25 species of limpet. Can you give me some sense of these limpets? Just a quick, preview into how amazing they are, and also what you've picked up, Matt.
I mean, as you say, South Africa is the world capital of limpets. So we have more different species of limpets, more limpets to the square meter, and bigger limpets than just about anywhere else in the world. So if you're an Olympic fanatic, you can come for your limpet watching holiday. This is the place to come. And the limpets, there are two main groups of limpets. Some of them are grazers like wildebeest or cattle or whatever. They have a homescar where they spend the low tide period. So when you go down onto the shore at low tide, they don't look like much. They're just attached to the rock. They're not moving. But when the tide comes in, then they'll get up and wander around and graze the rocks and actually keep them free of seaweeds. So on many of these flat areas of rock, you'll see there are just tufts of seaweed. And if you go and look at those tufts a bit more closely, each tuft's actually on the back of a limpet, because that's the only place that they won't get grazed. And then the open rock is just kept open by the grazing of the limpets. And then the most interesting ones is we've got a couple of species which actually culture their own gardens. So they occur very densely on the shore, often quite low down in the intertidal. And around each individual limpet, there's a little garden. And the limpet cares for that garden, fertilizes it with its urine and feces, picks off any algae that it doesn't want and pushes away any intruders, and then it just feeds on that alga. And that species of alga would get overtaken by other larger species if the limpets weren't doing their weeding job nicely in the garden. So that's really a unique aspect, and it keeps the limpet population very consistent. Every square centimeter of the rocks in that zone is actually occupied by these limpets, which means that the young ones don't have space to set up a garden. So the young ones initially settle on the backs of the adults, and they can establish a little tiny garden on their mum's or dad's back. And then when a limpet is eaten by a predator or dies of old age, then one of the babies from the back of an adjacent individual will move down and take over.
I think we found 17 babies on the back.
Well, okay, yeah. Waiting.
Waiting for the turn.
And I think they probably get like bonsai'd.
Yeah, exactly.
There while they're just waiting for a larger garden that they can occupy. So it's a very slow life. Another interesting thing about these two groups of limpets is that the gardening ones, are very slow growing and long lived, so they're living life in the slow lane. And then the grazing ones that get up and move around, they're much more short lived and grow much faster.
I think what the power of this is that you think, oh, limpets, maybe they don't sound too sexy. But from my perspective, I mean, I went looking for wildness. I went looking for, deep connection to nature. And part of that was many years ago. I went, deep into southern Africa, went diving with crocodiles, huge sharks, all sorts of things. And ironically, it was those limpets. And just watching them every day, just here in front of the house, that connected me to nature in a far deeper way than these exotic wild animals. And I think that's the power of your book, is that these, beautiful small creatures can sometimes open one's heart to mother, to that deep connection that we've, so desperately need in this world. And that's the power of what you are trying to do and what is accessible to people here.
Yeah. It's right in front of your, of your car park or your house if you live by the coast.
So it's like a secret world that you're unlocking, basically.
And the diversity is so much greater. I mean, I think the thing is when you go to a terrestrial environment or to the Kruger Park, basically, you're seeing vertebrates and birds and mammals and reptiles and flowering plants and insects. And there are three sort of main groups that dominate the terrestrial environment. But in the marine environment, there's many more groups. So these things like echinoderms and the starfish, I mean, they're completely absent from terrestrial environments. The whole massive group of animals, which you can only see by looking in the sea.
Yeah, there's it's something like, 15 or 20 phyla we can see there, whereas on land you'll never have a chance.
The terrestrial environment is really dominated by 3 or 4 phyla.
Exactly.
I mean, what you said about the secret world really resonates with me. I mean, coming from somebody who was into music and art and playing video games, to be now so interested in exploring the shore and seeing what's down there. I mean, there just are astounding weird animals which are nothing like you say, like you see on land. You might know about lions and giraffe and zebra, but an echinoderm is just such a weird thing. It's almost alien, and it's so interesting once you get to know what they are and what they do and what's actually happening in those little rock pools. So yeah, it really is like this secret world which I've now been able to see through Charles's eyes, and I'm hoping that we get to share that with everybody else through the book and through the videos that we've made.
And I mean, Matt's amazing close-up photography really kind of brings some of these tiny things into your face where you can actually appreciate the detail. So I think a lot of people are missing what there is to see, like bryozoans or hydroids or these smaller animals, because they're not getting down on their hands and knees and looking at them. So a lot of the stuff is quite small, and that's, I think, what's hidden it away from so many people, and that's what we're trying to reveal. That
and cryptic. I mean, even some of the bigger animals are masters of camouflage because there's so many predators. But I mean, this is an enormous work of dedication from both of you. Years of this. What is driving that, and what do you hope people can get from this wonderful Explore the Shore project book? Film series that's connected to it.
Shall I start with that? I think it's trying to spread the word. I mean, I think my eureka moment, not for this specific project, but for the popular books that I've done, was when I looked at how many people actually read the scientific papers that I wrote. So that you can look up a thing called your citation record. So if you publish scientific papers, there's a website that you can go to and you can look up and see how many people downloaded and looked at those. And I was bitterly disappointed when I did that to see that the pieces of work which I dedicated months to do and which I was quite proud of, 10 or 20 people had actually read it. And that really is what drove me to change the emphasis of my career from publishing sort of hardcore scientific papers for that small group of people who are already in the know anyway. to trying to broaden things out and produce material, whether it's video or book-sourced material, that is read by thousands of people or tens of thousands of people. And that's where I get my kicks basically now, is from the number of reads and the number of hits. And I really feel like I'm reaching a much larger segment of the population and getting the word out there.
You said going down to the shore and meeting people, and they say, I've been coming to this bit of shoreline for 15 years and I had no idea what was in the tidal pool that I'm swimming in. And those sorts of things are great.
Now that's our favorite remark that we get. I've lived here all my life, but I never knew that this was here.
I think for me, it's just what we were discussing now is opening up that world, which is the journey that I've been on through making this. I mean, I obviously knew what my dad did for his day job, but I wasn't invested in it until we started this project together. And it's really opened up my eyes to a really amazing world. And it's not even just what's happening down there, it's the tranquil nature of just going and spending some time on the shore and exploring and just seeing what you find. It's a great way to spend some time. If you have a nice morning, the sun's out, the tide's low, it's so easy to lose 2 or 3 hours, but you're not losing it, you're gaining so much from spending that time just out in nature and just seeing what you discover. And once you understand what it is that you're looking at, those discoveries become amazing.
And I think digital photography has also transformed this for many people now, because a lot of these things are quite hard to see and quite hard to identify. But the digital cameras these days can take amazing macro images of these smaller things. And I get a lot of people who are citizen scientists or amateurs who take amazing pictures and then send me in the pictures, and I help them identify it, and we learn together. And I mean, some of those people have discovered absolutely amazing things, and of course you've discovered many yourself, where you've sent me pictures and the things have turned out not only to be something you didn't know what it was, but an entirely new species that we've then described. So there's loads to discover, really discover. I mean, not discover to you personally, but to discover for the world right then on our doorstep.
And I think, what is so powerful about this work that Charles and Matthew are doing is that we have this quite radical crisis of people, enormous numbers of people around the world disconnecting from nature. And that has enabled us as a species to damage our life support system in quite a radical way. And this kind of work, where we can reconnect people with the environment, biodiversity, all the animals and plants in our environment, is literally the life support system of this planet. It's keeping us breathing, it's keeping us eating. Unless we reconnect with it, we will never be able to protect it. So this work and this book and what Charles and Matthew are doing is absolutely critical, that this, in that process of reconnecting us as humans to our mother, to our life support system. So I really, I cannot thank you enough for doing this and for your lifetime of dedication, Charles, and changing my life, changing Matthew's life, so many people's lives, so many students you've had. And then Matthew, for you now taking up this and spending years of your wonderful time and dedication to bringing this to a much larger audience. I'm deeply grateful to both of you, and for being my mentor, Charles. I can never repay that. So
it's been an amazing amount of fun with both of you going out together and exploring the shore. And I think just to sort of as a passing, an ending off point here, I think there's the same sort of transition that we see on land, where people have moved from hunting with a rifle and killing animals for food or for more disappointingly for pleasure, to going on photographic safaris. And then similarly on the seashore, I think the most common activity in the past was to go fishing or to go and collect food from the seashore. Whereas now I think with using tools like this book, they would like to encourage people to go down to the seashore and actually not kill anything, but to take photographs and to appreciate what they're seeing and learn about the biology and lifestyle of those animals, and just, you know, increase their own personal knowledge and maybe even find something completely new while they're at it. Doing that, and I've found several entirely new species in the course of shooting these videos and doing this book. It just shows you.
I cannot recommend the book enough. Explore the shore. Go out, get it, go down to the shore, and I promise you, it'll transform your life. Thank you.